Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us after all these technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience. And I'm Anumani, your modern day shaman and international best-selling author of this book, Unmasking Your Soul, a transformational journey of truth, light, and healing. And I'm so honored to have my good friend, Reverend Rhetta Morgan, on today with us. She is an interfaith minister, a musician, an activist, and a visionary. And I'm going to introduce her before we get her to talking about her journey of unmasking. So Rhetta her work has encompassed spirituality, activism, and creativity, contributing to transformation towards a more just community and world. She was an international professional singer for many years before completing studies at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in New York, becoming an ordained interfaith minister in 2009. Some highlights of her work include founder of Ecclesia Spirit, an inclusive interfaith spiritual community which has met monthly for the past 7 years. Founder of the While We Wait project. Here she provides spiritual and emotional support to loved ones of incarcerated individuals. A Leeway Art for Change grant sponsors this project. Facilitator of conversations on race and healing, including with the Interfaith Peace Walk. She's also a facilitator for the Anti-Defamation League, a World of Difference Institute. Reverend Rhetta is very active in the Philadelphia area using music she writes and sings to inspire and heal. Alongside ministerial work at Ecclesia, she uses her voice to create inclusive sacred space. Recently, this included performing for the Town Hall on Incarceration and Gender hosted by the Leeway Foundation and Bread and Roses Community Fund. Reverend Rhetta is a board member of Earthquaker Action Team and has worked with Philly Thrive, Pilot Student Organizers, MAPOP, the New Economy Coalition, and Protecting Our Waters. Some of her most meaningful work is mentoring and counseling activist leaders, encouraging self-care and what she calls a spiritual toolbox to aid against despair, overwhelm, and depression. Welcome, Reverend Rhetta Morgan. I am so honored to have you, as I've experienced your amazing work, and we met right when you were beginning to birth the idea of Ecclesia.
Yeah.
We met at a common ground meeting, and I got to witness and be part of your first Ecclesia and over the years experienced you. So welcome. And before we get into some of the questions, I'd like to level set our audience with the definition of soul. We're starting conversation around soul, helping people begin to connect with their own soul, to experience what that means for them. So when you think about soul, what does that mean for you?
So first, I want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me on the program. I'm very excited to be here. Yes, we met at Common Ground, which is also an interfaith, was an interfaith spiritual community. And immediately I felt a kindredship with you. And so I'm very honored to have walked with you as a friend and be able to do this work today. When I think of soul, I think of the essence of who we are. When we move beyond, what we see in the physical, what we think, what we feel, we move all beyond all the layers that we are conscious of. I think that there is a beingness, there's a place from when all of what we see and feel and hear springs from. And I think of the soul as that, the essence of who we are. I think of the soul as sort of the initial brilliance of spirit being in form. So there's a way in which I'm imagining the creator or creatrix igniting a kind of fire and we become these human beings. So that initial spark I think the soul is the sort of the foundation of both our breath and our heartbeat, like under, and the breath and the heartbeat being that which connects us into form, into consciousness. And so under the breath and heartbeat, I believe as this initial vibration or pulse, the Buddhists talk about, the initial Om as the first or the beginning sound. So I think of soul as being just below even that. And also the soul as the initiator of our mind, particularly the ability to be expanse, as if, the essence of who we are, being first mind, allness, like big mind without delineation. So I think soul is, those are words that I would use. I also believe that the soul is beyond definition and words. So I'm describing humbly some ideas, some things that I think about when I think of soul, but I think it's much more than that, actually.
Thank you. And I always love the depth of your connection, and your words always so poetic. And I loved what you said about the essence of who you are, because that's why we're here today. When we talk about unmasking your soul, that's what we're helping people do, is to help them connect with that deeper essence of who they really are, and help them understand ways that maybe they can start doing that, connecting more deeply, unmasking who they are. You know a lot of my story, and I came to you at a time when I was going through a divorce and I was in a lot of pain. And you helped me to unmask my voice. You are an amazing, musician and singer. You also have students that you teach voice. And I came to you thinking like, oh, I need to heal, right? For those of you who know about the chakras, right? I was carrying a lot of energy in my throat and in my solar plexus. Yet what I experienced with you was much more than just voice lessons. It was really healing that I was going through. And I know that you've experienced a lot on your journey. We'll get more into kind of this unmasking, but tell the audience about your journey and your journey of unmasking, because you always weren't an interfaith minister and that. So tell us about your journey and what it took for you to get to where you are today.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I would say that for many of us, crises or pain is a thing that really sort of cracks us open to go deeper, to ask questions. If life is going really well, often we don't ask, the deep questions. And so I would say maybe back in my 30s, I had the experience of losing my voice. I was a professional singer. I went to Peabody Conservatory. I was actually an opera singer as a young woman. And through a series of I guess, the way I was singing, and also things that I was holding that I was not healing, things from my own childhood that I wasn't healing. I had the experience of losing my voice physically, like I really couldn't sing very well at all. And it was the process of really groveling around, being depressed, trying to figure out what to do, what to be, how am I going to find my way through or out of that, that I leaned into my spiritual self, into my spiritual practices, my spiritual background. And I really leaned deeply into that, and did a lot of things with, I'm sure your listeners would be familiar with, different kinds of therapy, healing circles, a lot of journaling, a lot of prayer, just really struggling to try to figure out some of the deeper reasons that I would be struggling with my voice. And that went on for many years, actually. It's interesting. What's interesting is I did some of my biggest musical projects during that time. I really think about it. It's kind of odd, but I did a lot of struggling. What people couldn't see, they see who you are as a performer, which, by the way, was one of the biggest masks that I had to let go of. But they don't see the struggle behind that. So, I did this amazing international program with the Episcopal Church, for instance, creating a hymnal of music by women composers. It was an extraordinary experience, and got to travel to Europe several times to really celebrate that project. And I really struggled with my voice. But, as a performer, I put on the performer face and I got up and did the best I could. Through that, I considered that my voice was damaged, and deeper, that I was damaged because of that. And it was the use of my spiritual tools over time to keep coming back to prayer, to meditation, to cry all I needed to cry, to lean on every practice I could find, and every friend that didn't get tired of me sharing. Oh my God, like all of the kind of the stuff inwardly that I needed to clear. I used my spiritual practices over time. And I can tell you there were times when I couldn't tell that I would recover, that I could get through. And that's something that we talked about, the soul in the beginning. I think it's that initial fire or brilliance, I believe, kept me searching, kept me engaged and wanting something better, deeper, further than I was having when I was struggling. So over time, I began to see a glimpse of light. I began to have less anxiety. I began to, my voice actually began to improve. As I cleared away the debris, my voice had actually changed from the kind of operatic expression to a more, I would say, organic, sort of primal sound. And I love this voice so much. I feel it is absolutely the stripping away of sort of the pretense of the opera singer, stripping all of that away to the very vulnerable, sort of, as I say, primal sound of, I believe, my soul. And that is the sound that I use to connect, I hope, with my speaking as well, but particularly with singing. And that is what I teach when folks come to me for voice lessons. I'm not really interested in the performer. I'm interested in the authentic expression that's connected to that seat, that foundation of who we are. Because I think that is what can heal us and what connects and heals others as well.
Thank you. And I remember, many sessions that we had when we were doing voice lessons, and I would start crying, and you just were wonderful at holding space for me and facilitating that. Mm-hmm. And there were times I remember where we would try to go into the high notes, and there was a part of me that was scared, right? Mm-hmm. And I recognize now, for those who've worked with me know that, my voice is my greatest gift. So for me, my greatest fear really was my greatest gift. And you helped me to take those layers off and unmask that part of me. I would remember, like, there was a part of me like, no, don't go into those high notes. And I would like pull back, and you're like, no, it's okay. Just go into it, Yeah. And now I have these high voices coming through me, connected to the angelic and celestial world. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without, you really holding space for me and getting to that essence that you're speaking about. We all have that voice of our soul that wants to express through us.
Yes.
And it requires us to feel that fear, to reach out the way you did to people that love us, can love us into being, right, and support us as we step into that fear to let go of those masks that hold us back, and I wore many masks, you know, voice was one of them. I remember I didn't even like to hear my voice on recordings. And I'm at a totally different place now, but it's so funny. I think about those times and I was afraid to hit those high notes. So we're talking about masks, and you talked about the mask of the performer, right?
Yes.
So was there a particular mask that was hard for you to let go of, or were there different masks that you wore during different times on your journey?
Yeah, there for sure were different masks. The performer seems to be a major one that actually it sort of morphs, like whatever ways that I think I might need to hide. The performer changes and adjusts to give me that false sense of safety. And I think the work that I was doing when I lost my voice was the foundational work, so that as my voice was mended and healed, I continued to do the spiritual work and then to do the more subtle levels of healing. So that the ways in which my healing was focused in on my voice in those early days, I continued to work, and I could change as my voice was again mended, change the focus to now the performer actually lending my spiritual practices in service to basically undoing the performer. So a little at the time, taking a layer away so that more of who I am is showing up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So over the years, I experienced less anxiety. I experienced less worry that I'm either going to miscommunicate or offend someone, or even less fear that I can't recover if someone says something that's hard for me, or something happens that's difficult in relationships. I think over the years, the spiritual practice has helped me cultivate a sense of inner safety, and so the mask can come off because the work I've done, the underlying work, assures me that I'm indeed fine, I'm all right. The mask can come off. And if some people, don't like what they see, it's all right. It's all right, Yeah.
So I know you had different experiences. Tell us about a pivotal moment in your life where maybe you got so frustrated, you're like, I got to let go of this mask, or there's something I need to change. Tell us about one of those pivotal moments that maybe really caused you to go deep, maybe a dark night of the soul, that was a moment of transformation in your life.
I'll tell you about one that's actually very hard to talk about. I'm a little annoyed that it's the first one that came to mind, because I'd rather not, but that's the one that came to mind. So how I can talk about this without incriminating anybody. So one of the spiritual communities that I was involved with, I had exchanges with a person, so it was a white person, around race that really troubled me. And I used my spiritual tools to try to figure out what to do. The crisis, the pivotal moment is that my intuition told me that I needed to forgive this person. Now, the mask, and this might need a whole nother program to unpack, because you start talking about race, you're talking about constructs, and they are deeply ingrained in who we are. So I'm talking about this in this framework of soul and spirit, not in terms of politics and culture. So I hope that that will help folks actually stay with me. So I was instructed to do a sort of an inner forgiveness meditation with this person. And I struggled. I'm like, this person said or did things that I perceived were racist, and I don't want to forgive. Why should I forgive him? He should be doing the work, you know? And I argued with my own internal wisdom for a while before I could actually do it. The pivotal moment, so that part was the crisis. The transformational moment was actually doing that exercise. I'm telling you, I was crying as I was doing it with resistance. Like, this feels really wrong. But my intuition said I was ready, it was time, and this was the fire I needed to walk through in order to get to the other side. I had asked the question of my highest wisdom, what do I need to do to heal it? And didn't want to hear the answer that I got. So, yeah, I can remember being in that meditative space, crying, seeing this person in front of me. And I was focused on breathing in and out of my heart and sending that energy to his heart with great resistance. And there was a moment in the center, I would say in the worst part of my crying and resistance, that my heart broke open in this amazing way. And there was this sense of love pouring out of me from my own heart to his heart. I could not have planned it. I could not have crafted it. I would not have believed it if somebody had handed me a sheet and said, do this. I would say that wouldn't have worked. And I was in the midst of what felt like a mystical experience of love beyond the delineation of race and miscommunication. I was able to move through several masks and allow my heart to connect, I believe, to that foundational place that we talked about in the beginning, back at the soul level, and to connect to his soul. So whatever issues around race or miscommunication about, the project we were working on, I believe that I moved through that. And I tell you, I was changed after that meditation. And when I saw him again, what happened was I was able to confront him about what happened from a place of authenticity. So it wasn't like it was washed under the rug. It did not go away. And we continued to have a back and forth around this, but it was changed. Like, I was coming from a different place. And so I believe I was able to speak to him from a different place. And I believe I communicated to a different place than before having done that work. I think that is a pivotal moment. And as I say, I think several masks were confronted and had to be dissolved in order to do that work, in order to make that kind of connection.
That's so beautiful. And you hit on, I think, such an important part, which is love. I know at Ecclesia, we always used to talk that love, is the answer. And I get that guidance all the time. Love is the answer to every question that we have.
Yeah.
And part of our work is to begin to dismantle the parts of us that don't feel loved by ourselves. Because when we can love ourselves that deeply at that soul level, we can certainly meet, right, our brothers and sisters in that space and create space for the healing that needs to happen. So thank you for sharing that. And that takes me into, you are working at, so many beautiful levels with different people these days. What types of masks are you seeing? I mean, you're working right in with activists and dealing with issues around racism and issues that, for some are really difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you want people to be aware of that we can help, right, to shift with some of the masks that you see being worn with the folks that you're working with, in the environments that you've been in, now?
But let me say that I think until recently, up until maybe the last year or so, the masks that I would say I encounter have been mirrors of my own masks. So it's only been, and maybe the last year or so, that there is enough spaciousness in my own work that I can tell that I'm not just mirroring that, because I can tell that I have worked on and moved in some ways, and then I'm in front of folks who haven't, who aren't on that same timeline, either haven't done that work, or or there could be other reasons. But so it's only recently that I can tell that folks are struggling with masks that are not just mirrors of the ones I have had. And I would say, anxiety, a sense of like this kind of worry, ongoing worry. Is it going to be all right? Is the world going to be all right? Am I going to be all right? Is my family all right? Is there something I should be doing or not? What can I do? I want to do something, but I'm afraid. Something meaning out in the political world, or for any of the isms or obias, whether it's, racism, sexism, homophobia, all of those isms and obias. Is there something that I should be doing on behalf of those? So I think the masks are that, a sense of anxiety. And then of course, that sense of, in some way, having given up, the mask of despair, like it doesn't matter what I do, there is real scientific data that, in terms of climate change and some of the issues, the kinds of loss, the struggle that's happening, we may not actually be able to recover completely. But there's a lot of story that is untold. We don't know. I don't believe we tapped into the reservoir, either the spiritual, the creative, scientific, psychological. We haven't tapped into the reservoirs of human potential to be able to heal, to restore, to right. We haven't, I don't know that we have. And just as a story that I spoke of that took me to, with great resistance, to a moment of breakthrough into connection that I could not have dreamt of, I think that the times we are in is a collective situation, very similar to what I described personally, where we are invited to go to that brink of, oh my God, what is mine to do or think or be here, and to challenge ourselves to stay engaged so that there is a collective breaking open. I think that that's a kind of time we're in. So those are the kinds of masks that I see, and I believe what there is to do is what we know, what we intuitively are led to do, which is to pray more, to take deep care of ourselves, to work with the breath. There are many different kinds of meditation, to lean into the wisdom that we have in us on a cellular level, to speak to and engage with our ancestors, to walk in new ways, because the times are calling us, I believe, to stretch and to walk in new ways, not to do what we've done before, but to reach toward and for something that is new, to reach from something that is deeper, like to this work of unmasking the soul, connecting to the essence, so that there's not so much mask around anxiety, but that we can connect to that which, I love to, what helps me is referring back to the maker of the stars, the one who organized the gallery so that the sun doesn't fall off and the earth continues to go in its orbit uninhibited so far, the one who births babies. I had 2 kids. Are you kidding me? That which can birth, can have a baby grow inside and have you birth that baby, can surely guide us in such a way that we can restore and heal ourselves and our communities. I believe that with all my being, and my voice work and my ministry is based on that. And it is work to keep coming back to that passion, because it is, you know, it's easy to be lulled into the rhythm and the belief system of the consciousness of our culture. It's very easy to be lulled into a sense of despair. But when I look up at the sky at night and I see the mystery and the miracle of the heavens, I am encouraged to go back to that place of essence and to connect there and to stay there, to not let all of the things that are so real and difficult in this plane, to not let them take me away from that connection to the essence. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. And I just concur with everything that you're saying. I think part of what I'm here to teach people is to connect with that soul essence, right? Where society makes us believe that we have to have all the data to prove the facts, right? That we can't go with our gut feeling. And when you talk about the soul communicates through us, through those intuitive feelings, through those gut feelings, through that that you're speaking of. And it already knows the things that we need to do, like the higher part of you that told you needed to do that forgiveness meditation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And many of us kick and scream sometimes at the guidance we're getting. But when we start to practice that spiritual muscle and really surrender to that, boy, your life just transforms in ways that you never imagined. And I know I've witnessed you and you've witnessed me, and I know that for both of us, that is so true. And it's something that I hope people are getting from this talk about the importance of really listening to that part of you that is so much bigger than this human body, that wants to guide you to that place of transformation, but also of you finding that passion, right? The passion that lights you up. And I want you to talk about, you know, the stuff you're doing now that is so important, that I know lights you up. A little bit more about your work and how, you know, removing those masks and being able to show up in the world more authentically has really helped you step into that work more deeply.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do the work that I do now without unmasking, without having done lots of work over the years. The particular masks that I had distracted me from being able to focus, to complete projects in the way that I was proud of, to show up and to connect deeply. Like I had and still work with a sort of underlying theme around safety in the world. So something as simple as showing up for a meeting and being 100% present. You know, I was busy in my mind, asking, you know, am I safe? Is it safe to say this? What is the person say? Like I have this tape running while the meeting is going on. What did he just say? Did he mean that? Is he trying to, you know, like, so a lot in the background that was from messages, old messages from things that happened a long, long time ago. So the work of undoing, the work of you know, unmasking, of taking away one layer at a time of that conversation, and it happened over years. It really happened over years. But as I was able to, actually, I noticed that I could show up. Actually, I noticed the benefit of the work quite, you know, almost like, not like magic, but it's almost surprising. Like I'm in conversations and I'm noticing, hey, wait a minute, that voice isn't there. Oh, so that means I can do, you know, like, oh, you know, like it was really interesting to do the work and to notice the culmination, the end product of the work. It is, gosh, I'm humbled and very grateful and in awe of the process, because it was not, you know, it makes me nervous in the self-help books that say you follow through do this step one for this amount of time and do the next thing. I've never seen anybody's path actually work like that. You know, and each of us is individual. We have to tune in and listen deeply to our own unique path. I think as guides, as inspiration, we can inspire people and give them a sense of what we have experienced. But we have to get in there and do the work individually and make that connection. Yeah, I would say it's really about the showing up fully that helps me the most do the work that I do now. You know, last week I was on a radio program. I was a little nervous. I sang for 2 performances yesterday. The last one was a fundraiser for Puerto Rico. It's amazing musicians. And so what I'm noticing is that I show up fully. I connect to both my passion, and I'm listening deeply for what it is that is mine to share in the space. It's like practicing new skills, actually, from having done so much healing work over the years. And because of that, you know, it's funny, I have to talk to people to see what the end result is. I can share with you from my perspective of the difference I believe I'm making based on the looks on people's faces or some of the feedback I get. But something has changed over the years from the performer getting in front of people to this essential Rhetta showing up. Like my exchange, the energy of exchange, whether it is in front of a group of people or whether it's in front of a voice student or in front of one of my children or grandchildren or friends, that the way the relating resonates has changed. There is this sense that it's almost challenging to put into words. And you know, I pride myself on having words for most things. But there's something really mystical. There's something so deeply sacred that could be that I am leaning into the realm of silence, the gifts of silence. That when I say mystical or in awe, there is something in that hushed space that we know, and we know that we know, and that the words get in the way of the knowing that we know-ness, you know? And that's how I feel when I talk about what has shifted. Before this work, I would say, you know, connections and interactions, I could easily process and put into words. I could tell you what I thought my own intention was and what the outcome is. And I can do some of that now, but I'm in awe of being able to settle in, to settle down, to settle inward enough to have something speak that's bigger than I understand myself to be, that I become sort of a vessel for, and less credit can be taken because getting out of the way is what I did, you know, and to have that present with the meetings. Now I'm doing a new project that I love. It's called Beyond the Call for Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association. I'm doing with a brilliant activist, artist, spiritual human being, Matthew Armstead, and I were going to be co-facilitating an 18-month program for the ministerial arm of the UUs around the intersection of spirituality and activism. And so what I know that I can bring is this growing connection to that place just beyond the realm of silence, to the mystical, to the awe-inspiring, to the place of hushed voices and smiles that come from the heart. You know, that place where it's just yummy to be together. And what's spoken we can hear, like what we speak falls on us like nourishment in the body. It's less, because if we're not working, have to push through the protection that we have, right? If there's no protection, then that communication can can nourish who we are. So that, I think of Rumi and some of the great mystics, that life becomes more like play than work, communicating. And even in this time of great challenge and crises, that to connect to that place of knowingness, and then to engage from there. Even there, like, I seldom have the sense of hurry up, we got to fix it now or we're not going to make it. I seldom have that when I'm able to stay in this space, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know whether we're going to be, as a race, whether we're going to be able to heal ourselves and to right the wrongs, to turn the world from upside down, and figure out how to move with our differences in such a way that is not destructive. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I believe we can, and I intend to do my part to contribute to it, but I don't know that we will. But I know that whatever happens, the soul of who we are, that's on this longer arc. Some spiritualists and teachers talk about, like, the oversoul, that which is guiding not only this lifetime, but the bigness, that the expanse that we are, that is not in our everyday consciousness. That place that's guiding that. Like, I know and trust and believe that we are more than we see and can feel, right? And so to lean into that in the everyday action, whether it's the while we wait, and people who are really devastated by incarceration, whether it's ministers who are dealing with congregations of people who are very anxious because of the times, whether it's a friend or a child or a grandkid who's in trouble or feeling like they're in trouble. All interactions, the Baptists say, prayed up. If I can enter them prayed up, yeah, and be present. And I think an important point to make is, this isn't about bypassing. This isn't about, there's something I want there. It's not about ignoring what's real or present. It's not about choosing to be happy in the midst of, other people's suffering, or ignoring my own suffering. It's really not about that. I believe that I have arrived at this passion because I have not been afraid to stand and face my own deepest horror, tragedy, sadness, chaos. I believe that the way to the other side is through, right? And so when it shows up, even now, the devastating fires over there in California breaks my heart. And it's really challenging to stay connected. Like, there is a human part of us, because scientists say we prefer the feel good, we prefer our comfort to being uncomfortable. So there's a muscle, like doing that meditation with that guy that I called racist, right? There's a muscle that has to be cultivated to stay in there when it's uncomfortable, to stay engaged, to stay connected. So now when I turn to the fires, rather than the inclination to ignore, turn it off quickly and ignore it, I breathe through and with the heartbreak that I feel. Is the only way that I know that I can stay passionately where I am, is to make sure all the pieces are welcome. All the pieces of who I am can show up, and I can be authentically present with whatever shows up. Lots of years of work to get there. Lots of years of work.
Thank you. You remind me of a conversation I had with a friend yesterday. Everyone's not meant to be politically active or be out there and be an activist.
Right.
She talked about a message she got when she went to church, mm-hmm. which was around being passively waiting or actively waiting. And the actively waiting is what I want to talk about, that connects to what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we all have our part to do, right? Even if we're waiting to see what happens, the
Mm-hmm.
actively waiting is what you're talking about, the prayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
The meditation, the going into that stillness,
Mm-hmm.
so we can connect with that higher part of us who's
Yes.
going to tell us, like, this is the way you're meant to contribute to this shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have the responsibility, because we're in this human body,
That's
of doing something and showing up authentically. And the more we show up authentically, the
Mm-hmm.
more we're already contributing to that.
Yes.
Because the more we show up authentically, we're returning back to that place of love, to the
Mm-hmm.
origin of who we were when we took this human form.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to encourage people to do the active waiting and not the passive waiting.
Yes.
Right? Because the passive waiting gets you into that anxiety, into that depression,
Yes.
because you're not doing the inner work. And it all starts there. You know,
Yeah.
your outer world is a reflection of your inner world.
Yeah.
So you reminded me of that importance, that even if you don't feel you're one of those people that wants to be out there, you know, in the politics or activism,
Mm-hmm.
that you're at least doing your inner work in an active way, so that
Mm-hmm.
you are still contributing
Yes.
to community and to what needs to happen, this coming together that needs to happen in order for things to change.
Yeah.
So is there any last advice that you want to give our listeners
Mm-hmm.
of maybe one thing that they could start doing today to help them show up more authentically, to help them start removing these?
I would say, related to what you just said, practicing active listening. All of us can. There are many traditions of meditation, reflection, and contemplation out there. I like just good old-fashioned, taking a deep breath. I love lighting candles and that kind of ritual building. Just taking a deep breath, settling into where you are, and actively listening inwardly. Listening as, if you're in a conversation and you ask a question, someone asks you a question, there's a way, we take the space. I didn't say that right. So somebody asks a question, and then that person listens for the answer. So I'm talking about listening, expecting an answer, listening, the kind of listening where you lean forward, because you know it's going to be good. You don't know what it is, but you know it's going to be that kind of, like, to really cultivate a habit of listening. Now, I would say that in the process of doing work, that could be scary, because I used to be afraid that I was going to hear something I didn't like that instruction in the meditation. I was scared I was going to hear something that I didn't want to hear, and somehow I'm going to hear something, or you should be out there, you should fly to Russia or something, or fly to Africa. And yes, there are times when I've heard things that are uncomfortable, like the situation that I shared, but never, ever, ever have I heard anything that hasn't grown me, evolved me, hasn't contributed to that sense of unmasking, another layer being lifted, so that I can show up in the world in the ways that I am now, and be very excited about what's possible as I continue the work. I feel like I'm sort of in a trajectory. I'm in the momentum now, where I'm being compelled forward because of the work. Like, we create that as we work, as we do our inner work. We create this sense of forward motion. And so I would say, if you don't do already, and even if you do already, to add this aspect of active listening, like you really are listening for your highest self. You're listening for the connection of that which is greater than our everyday waking consciousness. Connect to it. And I would say, even people, I suspect most of the people listening will have some kind of relationship with the divine, or curiosity at least. I would even say, even if you have your doubts, that there is something to be listened to exercise the muscle of imagination and vision, and intend that there is something that arranges the stars, that births babies, that blooms flowers. That's something that communicates to that flower, the seed, and causes it to come forth. That's something that grows the baby from a tiny seed to a human being. That there's a lot of communication going on to keep these very intricate systems moving, and that we can tap into that and actually listen into that. And I would say, listen and be amazed. Listen and be amazed.
Thank you. That's powerful. And I encourage all of our listeners to maybe start their day that way. Imagine what your day would look like if you spent a little bit of time in that space of stillness, connecting with that higher part of you that would then guide you for the rest of your day. I mean, how would your day look? Amazing, I'm sure. And we forget that this part of us is so willing to communicate with us. I think that's a beautiful reminder. So let our audience know how they can connect with you.
Well, thank you. I'd love to have you join Ecclesia Spirit sometime. At the current time, we're taking a little bit of a break because the community is reforming itself around. It was founded with a desire to be a present spiritual tool and very current to really answer the needs of spiritual quests in the now. And so we did amazing things for 7 years. So we're looking at doing an online gathering, about to start some radio training. We're going to be on the airs in that way. We do have a solstice celebration coming up on December 21st. So if you'd like details on that, please email me at reverendretta@gmail.com. And Reverend spelled out, Rhetta is RHETTA, Reverend Rhetta@gmail.com. And I'll make sure you get on the Ecclesia Spirit email list and send you details on the upcoming winter solstice celebration. And also I can get you on the email list for upcoming events with Ecclesia.
And I'll make sure to put a link to that underneath the video. So I didn't ask you about this, but I feel like people need to hear your voice. Would you be willing to do one of those, you go into that place of invocation and you just feel that energy? I would love if you shared with us that part of that's so connected, to give a blessing to those who are listening.
Would love to.
Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. That was beautiful, my sister. Thank you so much for being with us. I just want to remind everybody that you are loved and you are loved, and have a blessed day. I look forward to chatting with you in the next couple of weeks. I'll be putting some more segments on Facebook Live. Thank you. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you. Thank you.